Hey folks, welcome back to another review with yours truly, Sam Healey. Today we're taking a look at The Rise and Fall of Anvalor. This is a game that's put out by WizKids, and it has the Age of Sigmar, Warhammer Age of Sigmar theme wrapped around it. It is basically a tile-laying game where you're constructing different parts of the city, placing units strategically within the city to take care of an onslaught that's coming from a horde of villains, whether it's Chaos Guys or Skaven or what's the other? Orcs. So those are the three factions that you're going to be dealing with. So let's get down to the table. I'll show you how it works, and we'll come back with some final thoughts in just a few moments. So here I have a two-player game of The Rise and Fall of Anvalor set up for you. First thing that players do is they will choose a faction that they want to be. And so first of all, we have the Fire Slayers over here, and then we have the Stormcast Eternals, or the Hammers of Sigmar over here. And these are the two heroic factions. And then you can also choose the bad guys that are going to be attacking the city of Anvalor. Additionally, you can choose what level, like this is the introductory or first level, and then there's also a second, third, and fourth level special ability that the bad guys can have, which basically just raises their toughness for each of the units that are over there in the pile over there. Additionally, you have a very similar option whenever you choose your faction. You can also choose from these different types of cards. So basically this is like a micro faction of your faction, and you can choose which one of these you want to be at the beginning of the game, which gives you a little bit more control on the specific kind of strategy that you're going to be using. So I want to show you the different kinds of cards or tiles that you have in your deck, and basically these are going to be two different kinds of cards. You have characters or units, then you also have buildings which can be put into the city. The characters, of course, are going to be attacking the bad guys and so forth and so on, while the buildings are going to be giving special bonuses to your units when they do different things. For example, you get +1 that whenever you place one of your units' factions. This gives you +1 manpower outright, because some of these different units are causing manpower or requiring manpower in order to place them out onto the board. And so that's the basic layout of the tiles. You have a pictorial representation of whatever it might be. If it's a unit, it also gives you the kind of attack it is. In this case, it's a ranged attack, denoted by the target symbol, and then the kind of die that you're going to be rolling, which in this case is the 8-sided die. And then up here, it's the requirement cost for building the unit, and this is the resource that it's providing in your hand before you build it. Now on your turn, you're going to have a hand of 5 cards or tiles that you're going to be able to choose to do from your turn. So as I said before, you have certain things that are given to you throughout the course. These are resources that you can use on your turn, and these are requirements. So for example, if I wanted to put the Stonecutters Guild out there, I would have to pay 2 coal or 2 ore from my hand, so I could use these 2 guys because they have ore symbols there, and I could place this out here anywhere that I like to, except for any of these numbered spaces, because that's where the bad guys go. All right, so these out here, now these right here are okay, because these are bad guy spaces for the 1-player version only, and then for out here, it's 2 players. So these would also be available for placing things out. But since this is a building, we probably don't want to do that. And so we could place this guy right out here. Having used these 2, this would just go into my discard pile over here. And now this guy is out here, and he's going to be giving me +1 ore every single time I need to pay ore. So I can pay to place out a building, I can pay to place out a unit, or I can pay to place out one of these city buildings over here, keeping in mind though that once one of these city buildings is out there on the board, then that's going to open the window for more bad guys to come out, which could push you closer to an onslaught. You can also just choose to pass and not do anything, but the final thing that you will do is you simply draw 2 cards from your hand, from your deck, and add them to your hand, and that's the end of your turn. And a couple turns later, once we have our first city building coming out to the board here, this is the administration center. It says place a faction building or a city building. You get +1 renown, which is your victory points over here. So that's something that everybody has the ability to do. The Fire Slayers are the ones that paid 2 gold to put it out, and this is an effect that everybody is able to benefit from. Now, since that is out, we actually go into the enemy's prepare phase. We check over here on this board to see if there's an empty spot. There is, so we're going to roll the 6-sided die and do whatever it says to do. All right, so if it's a 1 through 4, you're simply going to draw a bad guy tile off the top of the deck and place it on whatever number is rolled. So for example, if I rolled it 3, I could place the guy anywhere over here. If I rolled a 2, I could place him anywhere over here, and so forth and so on. But since we rolled a 5 or a 6, we look over here to this, and it says to add 2 units to the side with the fewest or lowest number of tiles, if it's tied. So we're going to take 2 of these guys, and we're going to place them to the side. Everybody is tied because there's no units out yet, so it goes to the lowest side over here. And so we're going to place 1 here. We place it face down, and we'll place 1 here as well. All right, so now these 2 units are out on the board, but nothing happens just yet. An onslaught or an attack isn't triggered until there are at least 3 on one side of the board. And now we resume turns as normal. Since no assault happened, nothing attacks, but this doesn't fill up until an assault is triggered and carried out. So this will stay open, which means that we're going to be rolling this 6-sided die to see if anything comes out of that stack at the end of everyone's turn now. Now, as I mentioned earlier, one of the things you can do on your turn is pass. And if you do pass, you can draw an extra card from your deck here. So I have only 2 in my deck, so I'm going to go ahead and draw that extra 3rd, which is going to bring me back up to my hand of 5, which is going to give me maybe a little bit more to do on my next turn. But that is the end of my turn. Roll the dice, it's a 3, and so, this isn't good. Let's place him, don't turn it over, place him right there, because I don't want any of my stuff to get messed up here. Reroll, and that's a 6, place 1 on any side. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and take him and place him right here. Now, what that does is it triggers an assault. I probably wouldn't normally do this because I don't know that we're okay, and I don't know that we're set up okay to handle the assault, but I want to show what combat looks like. So this is going to trigger an assault. All right, so we first of all turn all these over, and now we have to have our units attack them. If you can attack, you must attack. There's nothing where you can just kind of not do anything, all right? So first things first, we're going to go ahead and let the Fire Slayers go first, and we're going to attack this guy. Now, there is support, since I have a Prosecutor here that is adjacent to that unit over there. He provides +1 support. So I'm going to be able to roll my 8-sided die and add 1 to it to try to get either 4 or more. So we're going to go ahead and try to do that, and it's an 8. Now, this is important because if you roll the maximum ability of that die, it actually explodes, and so you get to roll another one. So this was actually much overkill. 15 plus 1 is 16, way more than the 4 that is necessary. So he is defeated, removed from the game. I should have attacked him, but I didn't. And he gives me influence equal to his strength. So I take 1, 2, 3, and 4. And that is part of my pool now for the end of the game. And he is defeated. Okay, so now I can attack with my Prosecutors here. I really want to try to go after him, but I'm not adjacent to him. Even though I have a ranged attack, I have to attack somebody that is adjacent to me. And so he's going to attack the Ard boys here. Now, I don't have any other supporting factions, so it's just going to be a straight up die roll. And he is +2 against these guys. So I'm going to get my 6. Sided die here, and I really need a 6 first, and I don't get it. So it's a 5, which would normally take him out if I was a melee, but because I'm ranged, that doesn't do good enough. So he's still around for that. Now at the end of that, what's going to happen here is the enemies are going to advance. So the enemy will advance here, and another enemy will advance here like this. Now, if there were units or buildings in these areas, if it's a building, would it be automatically destroyed? If it's a melee unit like the Grimwrath Berserker here, he would get a defense roll, which basically means he just uses his melee attack to try to equal or beat the strength of the unit here, in which case they would be destroyed. But if it's a ranged unit in the spot where it goes, it's automatically destroyed. Now, some of these units, like the Vanguard Raptors here, have a ranged or a melee attack. They'd be able to use that melee attack for the defense roll if possible. And of course, if they fail the defense roll, then the good guy unit is destroyed. But here, we go through another round of attacking where all of these different units can attack. So we're going to go ahead and use the Grimwrath Berserker here and attack that guy. So, ho, ho, ho. Now, fortunately, whenever the attacker is attacking, there are no other consequences for missing. Your attack just misses. A 1, no matter what kind of modifiers you have, is always a miss. So Grimwrath kind of tripped over himself there. Now, here we have the Knight Vexillor and the prosecutors, and they're around these Ard boys. So what I'm going to do first, I'm going to have him attack first because he's not ranged, which means that he's going to be able to roll a 6-sided die to get over the 5, and he's also getting a +1 support from the prosecutors over there. So we're going to go ahead and have him attack first, and then if he misses, we're going to still try to get with this guy. All right, but that's a 6. He's actually going to get to roll again. 7, 8, which is higher than 5. So the Knight Vexillor is going to award 5 influence for defeating the Ard boys here. Nobody else can attack because nobody else is adjacent. He has already attacked. You can only attack once during each wave. So now this guy's going to move here, and Grimwrath Berserker is going to get another shot at him here. So that's a 7. Not good enough. All right, so nothing really happens. What will continue here is that nobody else has anybody adjacent. He's going to destroy this building, and then he's going to continue moving off the board. Once he moves off the board, he's placed into the discard pile, but that ends the assault, and a new tile is drawn here to replace this, and then we go into another phase where we start placing new units out. When another side of the board gets a 3rd unit, or when all of these empty spaces are filled, another assault begins, and this continues until at the end of the game. At the end of the game, there's a final assault where one side is completely filled up, and they just start crushing. After that assault is over, influence tokens are added. Whoever has the highest influence is the winner of the game. And so that's about that for the Rise and Fall of Anvalor. Now, I do want to mention that there is a solo variant that you can use in this, so you can have 1 player instead of 2, 3, or 4. Now, the side of the board, I did briefly mention that in passing, but I just wanted to go over it. You basically will just denote which faction you used to play the game, and then you will also talk about which one of these units you used and the score that you got at the end, and you can track to see how well you did on those different things. But this is 2-sided as well, so you do have a solo variant there. So let's get to my pros and cons. First of all, my pros are, I want to first of all mention that the box insert is actually pretty useful. So if you look, you have the box insert here, and everything is pretty much just kind of all in here, standing up all of the different tiles. You have the bad guys over here, all of the heroes over here, city tiles, and all that kind of stuff. Some baggies for the different things that are in here, but this insert is functional, and the cool thing about it is that you saw that these were kind of tipping over when that's in here, but if you put the board on top, you can see it's pretty flush with the top of the board, and so this holds everything very snugly. So I did want to give props on that because it is something that I do appreciate when publishers are able to do that. So the box insert is my first pro of the game. Now my second pro of the game is the fact that this is an easily taught and played game. This isn't difficult to understand. There are a couple things that are a little wonky, but or maybe not wonky, but just non-intuitive. But at the same time, your turns go by so quickly. And that's the cool thing about it. You don't have to take a whole lot of time thinking about what you're going to be doing, because you pretty much have the idea, at least, after that first couple of times where you have to roll to see where those bad guy units are going to come out on. You pretty much know where you're wanting to put the brunt of your force, and then maybe shore up defenses on the other sides as well. But you really want to try to be able to face each assault head on, so you know pretty much where you want to place your units, what kind of units you're going to want to place. The factions are pretty well balanced, but they all feel somewhat different as well, because you have different abilities. And that's my third pro, is that you do have not only one level of variation from all of the other factions that are at the table, you also have a second level, because you can actually kind of specialize your variable player power within your faction using those 4 cards that I mentioned earlier on. I love it when games do that. It's just one of those things, because it makes me feel different than everybody else, and that's one of the things that this does. Not only are you a separate faction, but you could also kind of choose what kind of strategy you're going to use within that faction, and that's a great thing. My fourth pro of the game is quite simply that combat is simple. It's not over convoluted. You're rolling 1 die, adding some modifiers for people who are supporting possibly some of the buildings that your unit that's attacking might be adjacent to. There's all those kinds of things, but it's simply 1 die roll. Did I make it? Did I not make it? And I like that. And the enemy units attacking is even easier, because they don't actually even roll any dice. You are always rolling the dice for yourself, not for them. And so I really enjoyed the combat in this one. It was streamlined. It was not difficult to understand at all. It was very, very simple. Now, with all that having been said, there are some cons to the game, in my opinion, at least. It has this semi-cooperative thing going for it, and semi-cooperative games just kind of feel shady, kind of greasy, because you're all working together. Yeah, go team. I'm going to put this guy over here that's probably going to wipe out most of your units and a couple of your buildings. But hey, we're working together, right? That's really kind of how it feels. I know I was playing a game with Zev at the Gathering, and oh my goodness, he was just racking up the influence points time and time and time again. And so at one point, me and the other guy playing the game, we had to pretty much say, yeah, we're going to load your side of the board up, because we want you to get hit with the brunt of all of these attacks, and we want to kind of sit back and maybe make some pot shots and try to gain some more ground on you here. So I don't know that that's fun for everybody. I didn't necessarily mind it, but I will say that the semi-cooperative nature is going to grate on some people, because it's not cooperative and it's not really competitive. It's somewhere in the middle, so it's hard to find the right palette for it. You definitely have to work together, because you don't want you don't want everybody to lose the game, but at the same time, you want to do best. So it's a con, because I think some people are not really going to enjoy that. I didn't have as big of a problem with it, but there were a couple of times in the games that I played that I was like, I wish I wouldn't have to do this. I wish we could just kind of work together, maybe make the enemy units a little bit more difficult, and so that we can all kind of go after them together, and just take that semi-co-op part out. Either you win or you lose together. I like that better, but some people like the other way too. My second con of the game is that while the tiles that are making up the cards in your hand are nice and thick, the edges, because some of them are so sharp, because of the different shapes that each of the different tiles have for the factions, they're already starting to curl up a little bit from the usage, and we've only played this game a couple of times, so I had to, of course, use it to set up the game and all this other kind of stuff. So we're talking about minimal usage, but we're already starting to see some damage on some of those sharper corners that the faction tiles have. So that's unfortunate. I don't know that it's always going to be a problem. Maybe you will be able to be ultra careful with them, but you're playing a game, right? So you really shouldn't need to do that, I guess. But all in all, I think I enjoyed it more than I didn't enjoy it, which I know isn't saying much, but I am going to give it a 7 out of 10 because I think it is a decently produced game. I think it is it works well on the strategic side of things, the tactical side of things, placing your buildings in the right areas so that it gives maximum benefit to your forces, placing those city buildings in areas where they can be protected. These are all choices that you have to make. Managing the resources that are in your hand, and using some of those units that you want on the board as a resource to get something else on the board because you just need that guy out there and you can't afford this other fella. So it all has its good things. So I think it's a strong 7 out of 10. I wanted to like it more because I do enjoy tile laying games and I do enjoy the theme. I do enjoy the IP that's wrapped around it. But I just didn't like it as much as I wanted to, but I still enjoyed it, so I'm giving it a 7 out of 10. It does get my approval seal, so there you have that. Thanks for joining me. I certainly appreciate it. We'll catch you guys and gals on the flip side. Take care now.